Hi guys, so recently there has been a lot of terrible news about the UK and UK visas, potentially if you are looking to migrate into the UK either for study or for work. But today's video is going to take a slightly different outlook on this because finally there has been some good news that has been released. So today we're going to be discussing about how you can move to the UK if you do not get a study visa, a work visa or a post-study work visa. This is possibly the easiest way for you to come into the UK. However, the only catch is this is applicable to you only if you are an Indian. So in today's video, we are going to be speaking about the Young Professional Scheme or the Youth Visa Mobility Scheme for the UK for Indians. Now, for the longest time, there has been no update on this, but recently there has been a big update about this, and today's video is going to touch on this big update. So in today's video, we are going to be discussing the eligibility. What is it that you need to keep in mind for this particular visa? What are the particular dates that you need to have in mind for this particular visa? And what are the mistakes you need to avoid before you even look at applying for this visa? So if you are interested in this video, don't forget to watch this video all the way to the end. But also, if you haven't already followed me on Instagram, now's your turn to do so. Do not forget to follow me at Physiotherapy in UK, guys. But let's dive into today's content. So first things first, let's talk about how many potential visas are available this time around. So last time they had said that there were about 3,000 visas that were eligible for people to apply for them. So about 3,000 candidates would be selected to apply for these UK visas and potentially come and work or study in the UK based on whatever they decide. However, this time around, they haven't said that total number. They haven't disclosed it. And this is going to be something that is a bit of a catch. So to keep this in mind, you need to be aware that whoever applied last time and were not selected or had some difficulty in their sort of eligibility or did not process their documents in the right way, those were the number of seats that were left open, and that's the sort of seats or the total number of visas that are going to be put out this time around. So that in mind, I have to say that this is going to be really stressful because there is a very select few number of seats or number of visas that are open to Indians all over the world who are eligible to apply for this particular visa category, which is the Youth Mobility Visa. Now again, coming down to the next important question, which I know is on everybody's mind, saying, Nikita, this is the second ballot which is going to be open. Do you think there's going to be a third ballot or a fourth ballot? And the answer is no. So the first ballot took place earlier this year in February, and this is a second ballot which is going to be issued. However, the UK government will not have many of these ballots from this point forward until the end of this year, and obviously we don't know if this is sort of going to be continued into next year. So again, if you are somebody who has struggled to land a visa, whether it's study visa, work visa, or even secure a sponsored job in the UK, this is your best bet, guys. Try and apply for this visa right now. Now again, there are very select few in terms of requirements and eligibility, and we're going to go through that in a minute, so stay tuned. So in terms of eligibility, as you can see on your screen right now, it says that to be eligible for the Young Professional Scheme India visa, you need to be an Indian citizen between the ages of 18 to 30 years old. You need to be at least 18 years old on the date you plan to travel into the UK. You should have a bachelor's level degree or above. You need to have at least £2,530 in your savings account. And you do not need to have any children under the age of 18 who are dependent on you or who you are financially responsible for. So as you can see right here, the criteria are very clear. Now let's just come to the finer questions that I know some of you guys might have. So one of the questions that obviously some of you might have is, Nikita, what if I'm turning 30 next month? Am I still allowed to be eligible for this visa? And the answer is yes. So if you are planning to put your application into the ballot and you're not 30 yet, then you have been caught at the right time, because this is exactly the right moment for you to apply for the ballot. However, remember, if you are 30 already, for example, the date the ballot is being issued, if you are 30, then you are ineligible to apply for this particular ballot or for this particular visa. So keep that in mind, guys. What doesn't matter is what age you are during the application of the visa. What matters is when you apply for the visa, what is your age at that particular point of time. So when you apply for the ballot, if you are under 30, that's the ideal time for you to be applying for this ballot, and you will make the cut if you are over 18 years old but less than 30 at the time of the ballot. Now, I'm not going to go through all of the details about this entire process because I've really made a very clear video about this in the past, and I highly recommend you check out this video where I've explained the entire process in detail and given you all of the recommendations, including what are the eligibility requirements and what are the things you need to be looking out for. But let me just pull up the screen right here from the UK government website, which says that the next ballot will be opening at 1:30 p.m. Indian Standard Time on the 25th of July and will close at 1:30 p.m. Indian Standard Time on the 27th of July. So as you can see, these are the very clear 2-day timeline for applying for this particular visa, and you need to be aware about it. Now also, let's just talk about some of the processes related to this visa. Now let me inform you that if you make an application to this ballot right now, it is not a guarantee that you will be handed over the visa. What this essentially does is just puts your application into a lucky draw system, and at the end of it, so at the end of the 27th of July at 1:30 p.m., once they close the ballot, they will then just pick out lucky draw entries and applications that will get selected for the application of this particular visa. Now, obviously, if you are selected, you will be sent an email which will have a UAN, which is a unique application number. That is the number that you are then going to be using to apply for your visa in the next stage. So keep that in mind, guys. The ballot is more of a lucky draw system, and you just need to make an application into the lucky draw system right now. So in terms of timelines, once you've obviously made the ballot application, you should hear back from the UK visa and the Home Office within 2 weeks. So you should receive an email saying if you are successful or unsuccessful in your application. Now following that, assuming you've been successful and you've been the lucky few who've been selected for the visa, you then have to apply for the visa, and the visa roughly takes about 3 weeks in application time. Now please be mindful that there is a very strict financial requirement for this visa, which is £2,530, which you should have in your bank or in your savings account for at least up to 28 days. Now keep this in mind again, that if you need any more information about it, you need to check out this video because it has all of the information described really clearly, guys. Okay, so now that we've covered the process of the visa and what are the timelines you're looking at, let's just see some of the most common things that people tend to forget about this visa. So firstly, let's talk about the duration of this visa. So just to remind you, this visa lasts for 24 months. So that is 2 years. So you will be allowed to legally work or study in the UK for 2 years, which brings me to point number 2. What happens when you are in the UK for 2 years? It's really up to you and how you decide to spend this time. So you can choose to either study in the UK, work in the UK, or be self-employed. Now again, there are going to be some restrictions in terms of self-employment, and one of the massive restrictions is that you obviously cannot employ other people while you are being self-employed under this particular visa. And the second limitation is that your entire premises and all of the equipment costs need to be less than £2,500. Now, that being said, it brings me to my third point, which is dependents. As a part of this particular visa, there has been a very strict rule about not bringing your dependents with you. So that means that you cannot get your spouse or your children who are dependent on you. And finally, coming down to point number 4, which is that once you are issued this visa, you need to make your travel into the UK within 6 months of the issue date. So keep that in mind, guys, and plan yourselves out, especially if you are successful in this visa application process. So now let's just come down to some of the most common mistakes made by most of the applicants in the last ballot session. The first and the most common mistake that I saw people making, and that people reached out to me on Instagram, was for entering wrong details. Now, when you go on to make the ballot or to make an application into the ballot, you will be asked to sign in with your email and your contact details. Now, what I saw people doing was making ballot applications with the wrong details, and that meant that when they were asked the verification code, it went into the wrong details and they obviously couldn't make an account with it. Now that became really problematic. So my recommendation to you guys is to have a very clear email ID and a contact number, and obviously have somebody looking over your shoulder while you make that application, because you need to make sure that all of your contact details submitted to make that account or to create that account into the ballot system is valid and very real to you. Now, the second most important thing that I want to discuss is that obviously last time when the ballot system opened, obviously there were many of y'all who were trying to make those applications into the ballot system. And for a particular time, there was like a bug or a glitch in the system, and it said that it wasn't accepting applications or you couldn't even access the web page. And let me tell you, this is something that's entirely normal. And also, if there is a bug, for example, there's something that's not working on the site of the application, the UK government is aware about it and they are taking steps to resolve the problem. So please do not be stressed or worried about it. My advice to you would be keep checking the website every sort of 30 to 60 minutes just to make sure that if the website is up and running, you are able to make that application. Which brings me to point number 3. Many of y'all reached out to me last time saying, Nikita, time is running out. I haven't made an application. Do you think this is going to affect my chances? And the answer is no, guys. This is a ballot system. It's not a first come, first serve sort of basis. So if you've made your application, you will be given equal opportunity to be selected in the draw. It doesn't matter even if you are the last applicant who's making the application on the 27th of July. So keep that in mind. It doesn't matter when you are making your application as far as you put in your application into the ballot system within the 2 days that I've mentioned before. Now, that brings me to the next point, which is some of you, when you were applying for it last time around, felt that obviously it's taking far too long and you were in a queue which could nearly be up to 1 to 2 hours. And at that point, some of you actually left the queue, shut down your browser, and were like, we'll come back to this later. However, I do remember reading this comment where somebody reached out to me saying, Nikita, I've sort of logged back in and it's now telling me even longer than before. Because what potentially happens is that you've left the queue, and now because you've left the queue, there are going to be others who join the queue, and then you are going to be placed at the end of the queue when you sort of log back into your system. So keep that in mind, guys. Even if you are placed in a queue, just be online, just sort of be on that screen, or maybe make a secure internet connection for yourself so that you will be eligible to sort of get forward in the queue. It's almost like a physical queue, but it's virtually right now, obviously, because it's a ballot system for the UK government. So keep that in mind, guys. Do not leave the queue midway if it's saying that it's going to take about 1 to 2 hours, because then you lose your spot. So that when you sort of join the queue later, it's going to be much longer for you than what you had anticipated. Now, coming down to the final question, which I know is on many of your minds, because obviously many of y'all would have made the application the last time, is, Nikita, if I've made my application the previous time and was unsuccessful, am I allowed to make my application this time? And the answer is yes. So even if you made an application last time into the ballot system and were unsuccessful in securing a visa, you are still eligible to apply for the ballot system this time around. So do not hesitate, guys. Make those applications, especially if you feel that you want to come into the UK. Now, potentially, once you are selected in the ballot, you will then be allowed to apply for the visa, because you will receive the special email which says that you are now eligible to apply for the Youth Mobility Scheme visa for India, or the Young Professional Scheme. So if that is the case, please do let me know in the comment section below, because I'll be really interested in knowing how you guys get along. Take care, guys. Bye.